Hi everyone, this is Carola Binder. I'm an economics professor at Haverford College, and this is one of a series of videos that I'm making. It's intended for students who are preparing to write their senior thesis in economics. It might be helpful for others too. So if you're thinking about writing a senior thesis in economics, maybe you're taking our Econ 396A course in the fall, what I want to go over today is how to set up a file system for saving the various files that are going to be associated with your thesis. And then being able to share that with your professor or your thesis advisor so that you can work together on your thesis. So what I recommend to my students is to use Dropbox, although you might end up using something else depending on the preferences of your particular thesis advisor. But either way, the folder system that you'll use will be pretty similar. So I'm going to share my screen with you and show you how I would set up a set of Dropbox folders for making my thesis. Okay, so let me share my screen. All right, what you see here is just on my computer, all my different files. You know, you're going to have different file names, of course, but it'll look something like this. Now, if you don't already have Dropbox, you'll have to go to dropbox.com and install it. But once you do, you will have Dropbox on your computer. So you see over here, I have a little blue box that says Dropbox. If I click on that, I get a list of all my different Dropbox folders. I have them for every research project, you know, that I've ever worked on and a variety of other things. But let's say, okay, I want to make a new folder just for my thesis. So I come up here to Home, and then I click on New Folder. And I'm going to name it, I'll name it my last name and then Senior Thesis. That'll make it easy for your advisor if you're going to be sharing this Dropbox folder with your advisor, so they can, you know, they can easily find it. They might want you to call it something else, but Binder Senior Thesis. Okay, so now I have this empty folder called Binder Senior Thesis. If you then go and share access to it with your thesis advisor, then they can easily look in it and see your different files. And that works a lot more convenient for both of you than having to email them different versions of files all the time, especially because you're going to have likely a lot of different data sets in there and some code, and you might want, you know, to be troubleshooting with them and saying, when I run my, you know, when I run my Stata code, I get an error message, and they might want to try it out and see what the issue is. If they have your whole folder shared with them, they can just run the code from their own computer and help you troubleshoot. Otherwise, you would have to email them all of the relevant files that you needed for running your code. So it's going to be a lot more convenient than having to constantly be emailing files back and forth. And another nice thing about using some storage system like Dropbox or a similar thing is that old versions of your files are automatically like saved to the clouds. So you don't need to have tons of different versions of your thesis draft called My Thesis Draft January 2nd, My Thesis Draft January 6th, My Thesis Draft Professor Binder's Comments, and so on. If you want to find an older version of your draft, you can go to Dropbox and just find that earlier version. So you don't really have to worry so much about accidentally making a change and losing some old work that you wanted. Okay, so within this senior thesis folder, here I'm going to click Binder Senior Thesis. It's empty so far, but I'm going to set up a series of subfolders, and they're pretty much going to be standard from project to project. So you want to have a folder that's for your raw data. I call it raw data. And what your raw data is the data files exactly as you downloaded or accessed them. So these are not going to be Excel files that you went in and made edits to. It's very important to make your work replicable, that you have the raw data in there, and then you have some code, probably in Stata, that's going to directly import your raw data, clean it up, and make some clean data that you use for your analysis. Okay. So what I've found works well for me in research is to have a folder for raw data. You know, your project might only have one file that goes in there, or it might have dozens. It really depends on the project. Then another folder that I usually call it something like prepare data. And that is probably going to have your data code that you use to clean up that raw data and transform it and save it as the nicely formatted, clean data that you're going to use for your analysis. Okay. Then that nicely formatted, clean data is going to go in yet another folder called clean data. Clean data. And we'll have yet another folder that will contain your data files that actually do the analysis. So I usually just call that analysis. Okay. So these 4 folders are going to have your data and your data files. And then just in the main part of this folder, you will have things like the draft of your thesis proposal. Maybe you have some sort of schedule of goals for yourself, whatever else you want. And I would also make another folder for your references, so your literature that you're finding. Literature. So as you're doing your literature review, you will be putting probably PDFs of the different papers that you find that you might want to cite into that literature folder. Now, you might find it helpful to even have other subfolders in there. So if you want to have the literature grouped into different topics, you could have subfolders within the literature folder for those different topics. But for now, just start with the literature folder. Okay, so that is how you set up your kind of system of folders. Then you want to share that. I mentioned you want to share that with your advisor. So here's Binder Senior Thesis highlighted. I'm going to right click on it. And you see there's the Dropbox icon and it says share. So I will just click on that. And then you can type your advisor's email in the to box and send them a message so that they are able to access that folder. It'll look like a folder on their own computer. Okay. So I think I'm going to stop the video here, and I'll pick up with another video that will show you about some examples of putting data into the raw data folder, and then how to start working in Stata. So some of the basics of going from that raw data and making your prepare data files so that you end up with your clean data. All right, thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you later.